Welcome to the NITRD Podcast, where we explore the cutting-edge advancements and collaborative efforts shaping the future of networking and information technology. For those of you that don't know, NITRD stands for the Networking and Information Technology Research and Development Program. Join us as we connect with leading experts, discuss the latest trends, and uncover how NITRD is driving technological progress across the nation. Stay tuned as we embark on this journey through the forefront of technology, innovation, and research.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michael Littman. I'm the Division Director for Information and Intelligence Systems at the National Science Foundation. Artificial intelligence. If you're listening to this podcast, and I think you are, you probably know what a big impact it's having in the public conversation. For us to make the best use of the technology in making the world a better place, it's important for people to learn about AI. So today's program is focused on the question, how do we educate people about artificial intelligence? Let's meet our guests. Christiane, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Christiane Pulliam. I am from the United States Patent and Trademark Office. I am a management quality assurance specialist and a member of our AI and emerging technology working group.
Thanks. Gil?
Yeah, hello. My name is Gil Otrovitz. I'm over at the Department of Veterans Affairs, where I'm director of the National Artificial Intelligence and over with the research and development.
Thanks, Gil. Kevin?
Yeah, hi, my name is Kevin Johnston. I work in the Office of Educational Technology at the U.S. Department of Education, and I help co-lead our AI work.
Very exciting. Ellen?
I'm Ellen Zagura. I'm a colleague of Michael's at the National Science Foundation. I'm the Division Director of Computer and Network Systems, which may not sound like it is directly on topic for AI education, but I happen to also have some responsibility for the education and workforce development parts of the computing part of the National Science Foundation.
Well, I'm very lucky to get to interact with all of you, and I'm glad that you were able to join the program today. Let's start off with who needs education about AI? Can you say a little bit about what the audience is for AI education?
I can start from the U.S. Department of Education, and I can say that from our perspective, we are definitely trying to think about AI education, and we're kind of framing as kind of AI literacy, helping people understand what AI systems are and how to interact with them across the entire continuum. And that could be from young kids in ways that doesn't necessarily have them interacting with AI systems, but it's helping in kind of paper and pencil and drawings and helping them kind of make sense of what the world is, all the way up to advanced careers. They're specifically focused on building AI systems and helping to create kind of the workforce needs that will be in demand in a coming AI age. And so I think we're really trying to think about the whole gamut of education opportunities.
So we're thinking like K-12, we're thinking like college, we're thinking grad school, we're thinking reskilling.
Yeah, workforce, absolutely.
Fantastic. Right. So maybe Christiane, why do you think that that's important, that we cover all these different bases with AI education?
I think AI has become a tool that we are all going to be interacting with, and everyone needs to know how to use their tool and understand what happens when they use that tool. That doesn't mean everybody needs to be able to create an AI system on their own, but it's a tool that's going to be part of our lives. And so kids need to understand how to use it when they move into the workforce. And those of us who are already in the workforce need to learn how to adapt and continue to use the tool in a safe and responsible way.
Fantastic. Gil, what would you say are the key skills that students and other people need to develop to thrive in an AI-infused world?
I think one thing we want to think about when we're thinking about that future AI-infused world is that, as was said and alluded to, is that it is a kind of a tool, right? And just as people now are across different fields learning basic arithmetic skills, I think we'll see that with AI as well. So it'll be technical skills, whether it be information literacy, that may include data literacy, critical thinking, and engaging in that, along with not only the math and not only those technical skills, but also understanding how to interact with these AI and embodied AI situations that we'll see in the future. So much like how today in kindergarten, people learn about skills of how to interact with people, I think that in the future, we're going to see settings and situations where early on, even in kindergarten, people will learn how do you interact with AI and embodied AI to work together, develop teamwork skills so that they can work together with these other entities to solve problems, to adapt to changes, and work together.
Gil, thanks for that. Ellen?
I think we've sort of been here before in the sense that probably 20 years ago, there was a big move to teach computational thinking and to push that all the way down into K-12. It wasn't to teach computer science, so not the deeply technical, how do I build a system kind of skill, but for everyone to have some understanding of what it means to do computation because the world was getting infused with computation. I would say this feels a bit different. It feels more urgent that everyone have some understanding of what AI is and what are the sort of basics for how it works. I think that's because it's showing up in so many tools and systems and applications and frankly, traffic lights that we can't easily box ourselves away from it. So it does feel like a more urgent situation. And I think I might add to the characterization of it as a tool. It's a tool for us to use, but it's also a tool being used on us. And so when I think about literacy and I think about educated citizenry, I think about the need to be alert to times when AI may be acting not necessarily on your behalf, or you may be seeing things that have come from AI. For instance, an AI generated image. If you don't know that that is a possibility, then you may interpret that image as coming from the real world. And we should all be heading towards a skepticism when we see images, for example, about whether they've come from the real world or they've come from AI. So there's a kind of both let's figure out how to use this to make our lives easier, our jobs, maybe, beyond our jobs, but let's also get people savvy enough about how it might be showing up in their world when they are not necessarily expecting it.
I'll say we've had listening sessions with over 100 K-12 educators and over 100 higher ed faculty. And we did them 7 by 7 and 10 by 10, where we were listening with them and talking with them for an hour. And I can say that across all of those, we have definitely heard this kind of critical thinking, this media literacy, this ability to kind of collaborate and problem solve, maintain kind of a rooting in the real world while also getting assistance from virtual partners and things like that. I think that's been consistent across all of what we've heard. I think we've also heard a lot about being able to leverage systems effectively. And that means in a domain context as well. So being able to say, here's what my core job is, here's what my core content is, and I can see the ways in which systems already integrate into that content, which is going to look very different from someone who's working in a STEM subject or, even more narrowly in something like biopharmaceuticals than it is someone who's an artist and working in the humanities. And so they're able to kind of conceptualize how these systems interact with their specific domains and contents and use those skills effectively.
I would agree with that. And I would also add an adaptability and a willingness to learn, because even if you learn it today, it's probably going to be different tomorrow. So being open to the fact that it's a very changing landscape, and this isn't like learning to use your hammer that hasn't changed. It's going to keep changing and you're going to keep having to adapt to it. So encouraging folks to not be frustrated by the fact that it keeps changing and being open to that and continuing to put forth that effort to be, as Ellen put it, those informed citizens. That's an important part of your everyday life as well as your work life.
So I know all of our agencies are involved in AI education in one way or another, and I was hoping you could share with everybody what are some things that your agency is doing to help educate people about AI. So Christiane, I went to some educational programs that USPTO has done recently, and I was just blown away with how nurturing and invigorating it was and how the students are really engaged. Can you say a little bit about what sort of educational programs your agency is involved in?
At USPTO, because our examiners are working with patent applications in cutting edge technology areas, technical training has been an important part of our support for our employees forever, as far as I know. And so that program has grown greatly as technologies have also changed and as there have been past orders from White House suggesting that those programs continue to expand. But more recently, especially with AI, we've also built upon going beyond those technical trainings to realizing that the rest of the agency also needs some of that technical training, and also that there's a lot of policy and softer skills, if you might call it, that go along with AI, both use, risks, that everyone needs to know. So we've been building an internal portal to sort of collect some resources from the outside, from utilizing some of the work that GSA did last year and is doing again this fall for government employees, as well as some of the other resources that we can bring in to sort of meet people in their domain context that Kevin was talking about, helping them learn about AI as it relates to their world.
That's fascinating. So that's another audience for AI education, are the people who are actually involved with evaluating patent applications. They need to be kept up to date. Can I hear about what's going on at the VA?
Certainly. So at the VA, we've got a number of programs. We've got one called the BD STEP program, which is the Big Data Scientist Training Enhancement Program, where we have different students that we pair up with different research investigators, and they'll have both training in doing some of the analysis as well as engaging in projects where thereby they'll be able to actually practice the trade, so to speak. Many of them actually end up then staying in the VA beyond that as well. So that's one that we've been piloting is the All Services Personnel and Institutional Readiness Engine, which is one that we're piloting across some 6 agencies across government, working with DoD, NASA, some others, around the results of a past AI tech sprint, which basically is around training and upskilling. So developing skills of people who are wanting to go and learn and move beyond where they are at a given time, who may not have had AI expertise in the past, but would like to develop that. So that's another angle that we have as well. But I know there are a lot of different programs out there. I think now is an exciting time to really develop and kind of develop synergies across different agencies as well.
Very nice. Ellen, at the National Science Foundation, what's going on?
There's quite a lot going on. So we have multiple parts of the National Science Foundation that fund education research and also try to make STEM education opportunities available, starting in K-12 and then proceeding up through PhD programs and beyond. So maybe one that I'll mention is targeted at the K-12 level, mostly towards high school. And it's a research and practitioner partnership program. So the idea is to take the kinds of things that researchers in a domain are learning about the domain and about how best to learn it, and try to partner with teachers who are in the classroom developing curriculum and really boots on the ground. And so the expertise is still developing, right? And the understanding of how to best teach that subject is also still developing. So that research and practitioner partnership program really tries to sort of put together 2 different groups of people who might otherwise not have that much chance for interaction.
That's fantastic.
I can briefly, say that we also have investments in the full range of K-12 all the way up. One area of particular focus has been the community college population. So community colleges sometimes perhaps are in a little bit of a funny position. They serve an incredibly important both termination and bridging role for students and serve a huge part of the population. And we've been in conversations with large community college systems to find out how they are approaching artificial intelligence education and how they are trying to both better prepare K-12 students to transition to the community college setting to learn AI, and also what they can do in this community college setting to prepare students to move to a 4-year college or finish with a degree that provides a skill set that's valued in industry.
Yeah, that's a really interesting segment. Yeah, Kevin, tell us how you think about this.
We invest in education all over the place. And so we are investing in, any number of things, some stated, some not. One that was stated recently, I think this builds on something that Ellen was getting at, was in what's called our Disability Innovation Fund. And this was specifically about competitive integrated deployment and helping people with disabilities to be able to enter into in-demand sectors. And I think one of the things that's really important for us is we think about what are the groups. So we've had like multiple waves, as Ellen was hinting at with the computational literacy, multiple waves of kind of tech advances. The question is like, what groups got left behind in those? And how do we make sure that they're getting both the right messages and the opportunities? Because one of the things I think we wouldn't want is for people to think that AI workforce means just the most advanced top piece of the CS computer science workforce, which is kind of like a popular interpretation of what people think about when they think of AI workforce. Really able to say, it's about a broad and expansive workforce that covers all the way from kind of entry-level positions up to that most advanced top portion of the CS workforce, making sure that people have information about how they can enter in at various points of that. And so this Disability Innovation Fund, I was really excited to see them put some explicit emphasis on helping with advanced tech careers for individuals with disabilities in competitive integrated employment settings, so that we're really helping to make sure that everybody has a chance to enter into what is almost assuredly going to be a rising sector of the economy.
That's a wonderful point. The idea that it could very well be in the public eye that, okay, there's a couple of people who are well-known AI experts, and what we're doing for AI education is making sure those people are well-funded. And that's not it at all. We really do see this as an important technology that is touching everybody's lives, and everybody deserves to be a part of it, and everybody can benefit from being a part of it. So that's wonderful. Thanks, Kevin. So I'm actually curious about the four of you. So how did you come to know about AI, and how do you continue to learn about AI? What's your path been like? Maybe we can start with Ellen.
I'm at the National Science Foundation now, but to answer this question, it's good to know that I am on loan from Georgia Tech in Atlanta, Georgia, where I'm a professor in computer science, and I've been there for 30 years. So I have, I'm around computing all the time. But my research area is computer networking. It's not artificial intelligence. And I also have some interest in the teaching of ethics in undergraduate computer science. And that actually is maybe a little closer to some of the things that are important in AI education than computer networking. So, and this happens to professors. Students come along and they're really interested in new topics, and they push you, and they want to take these classes in new techniques, new tools. And then they want to bring them to research problems that you're working on. So my primary introduction to AI is actually through my graduate students who wanted to bring AI techniques into problem solving. I'll confess, I actively resisted learning about AI for a while. It felt a little too hyped, maybe. So I sort of resisted for a while, but I've been reading a couple of books that I have found very good as introductions. One of them is Artificial Intelligence, A Guide for Thinking Humans.
By Melanie Mitchell.
And the other one is Michael's book called Code to Joy. So those have really provided a great, just the right level introduction for where I am. And that's been really helpful.
Outstanding. Thanks, Ellen. Gil.
Yes, I think that was an interesting story Ellen had about the student that came. I feel like I was a student who was really excited since a child about just like, how do you get computers to help in biology, right? And you have to be creative to help in biology, as opposed to just analyzing individual numbers or things like that, right? And so just got really excited about trying neural networks in computers, and then went to those professors. And I was like, hey, there's this area. It's really interesting. Could we apply this somehow? I was lucky that there's some professors that were interested in that and just did the PhD in that and applying that. And fortunate, there have been winters obviously in AI, but then there've also been kind of these really exciting times. And so I think part of it is essentially timing. Are you there at a time when you can take advantage of the excitement, make developments that'll kind of push the field forward? But yeah, I want to echo what kind of Ellen said and just say that it's really finding yourself in that adventure by seeing what you want to solve and how to approach it. And AI is just so applicable in so many areas and lets us explore things both in a creative way as well as technical aspects.
I love that. Thanks, Gil. Christiane, what was your AI journey like?
Like the other folks, a little bit windy. I have an undergraduate degree in computer science and a law degree, and that led me to the patent office to mix those two things together. And I'd been a supervisor for a few years. And about 7 years ago, we needed a supervisor over the AI area. And I said that sounded like it was the right time for me to change and do something different. And so I began learning AI by talking to my employees who already knew it a little bit. They recommended some textbooks, took some classes, went to our tech fairs to learn about the technology. And it was still small at our office at that point in time. So there weren't a lot of folks in the office, and the projects were starting to grow. And so I worked on a project with our chief economist office that was an AI model to find AI patents. AI is not a term that has a definition that you can say real easily what's an AI patent application. So we worked on a model to help find those. That led to being able to use it and to help design it, but started with reading some technology books and some textbooks, fundamentals of deep learning. And then more recently, taking more of the policy looks with the GSA Centers of Excellence seminars. And a lot of universities now have, even top universities and companies are producing a lot of materials that are free to the public. And so fitting those in and taking advantage of those to broaden my understanding of how it works and how it affects my life. And I'm a parent as well of middle school and elementary school aged kids who, this is going to be part of their life, and their educational journey is going to be very different. So I'm at the point where that's a focus for me of trying to figure out how I can support them and guide them through that process, because this is going to be part of their world from the very beginning.
I love that. That makes a lot of sense to me. Kevin, you want to tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so my introduction to AI started actually in undergrad, but I was a philosophy undergrad. And so I was reading Hubert Dreyfus arguing that there could never be a self-driving car from a phenomenological perspective, and kind of digging in and thinking, like, at that point there actually were still significant barriers to self-driving technology. And so we were, doing some robust debate about whether Dreyfus was right or not.
That's what philosophers do. They have robust debates about whether X is correct or not.
That's right. And then I kind of continued learning about it through a number of years. When I first joined the department, I read a really influential book called The Alignment Problem by Brian Christian that really helped kind of me dig in a little bit about some of the philosophical but also policy aspects related to it. And then I had a really weird opportunity where I was working on the President's Council of Advisors for Science and Technology in November of 2022. And all of a sudden, everything became about AI.
That being the moment that ChatGPT was released, November 2022. Fascinating. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And so I was sitting around the table, with, I was sitting behind the table. They were around the table, listening to some of the top scientific minds discuss some of the impacts of this latest wave of advances, and have not stopped thinking about AI since. Basically, I came back to the department. We've, continued our work on AI in education. And so it's been, for me, like kind of one continuous learning, bite-sized approaches since the Dreyfus days.
That's amazing. I mean, one thing I love about this, and I was sort of expecting that there'd be interesting stories like this, is that it's never too early and it's never too late to get your AI education in place, right? There's always an opportunity to learn more. There's always a chance to use what you've learned. I wrote my first AI program, I think, in 1979. So I've had plenty of time to try to get better at this. And it's just wonderful to see all the different pathways that people can take to this kind of information. So with that in mind, I think we all agree that we would like to see AI education better integrated into our education system more broadly. What do you see as the biggest challenges that we face to be able to do that? What's something that we're going to need to overcome? Maybe we could start with Gil.
I think some of the challenges that we face are exactly as you pointed out, the integration across different parts of education, right? Because AI is becoming so ubiquitous, it is essentially like a skill, like we're seeing, like arithmetic, that you kind of need everywhere, right? And so how do you integrate it in classes where there's not a technical aspect, but it's very important, for example, like ethics and so forth? How do you talk about some of these areas when there may be, as I said, people who are not technical that you would like to communicate about these? How do you include the technical aspects and communicate that at different age groups? I think that's one piece. And then the other piece is to make it seamless. So how do you make it so that people learn about AI and use AI within the classroom in a more seamless manner? I think that's going to be an area that we're going to see a lot more developments in the near future. I think an analogy is that we see, at least in the healthcare area, is how do you get AI into the workflow, right? It really matters when the doctor doesn't have to separately sign in for each patient and so forth when they want to use and leverage the AI. I think the same thing is going to be true with students as well, with teachers and how they engage in AI and activities to learn about it, is to make it kind of seamless and follow in the workflow of their learning, as opposed to being a separate exercise specifically on AI. So that way it comes naturally to them.
Nice. Kevin, you must be seeing some things ahead of us that are pretty daunting. What should we be worried about?
Well, I think you maybe heard me say this before, Michael, too. Teacher shortage is like number one thing that comes to mind about what are barriers. So I was a teacher. I taught in a school that had 6 vacant classrooms. So that's classrooms where kids just don't go to science. They go to PE twice that day because there's nobody there to teach them. And it's especially high in STEM subject areas where you have the most clear opportunities to do some both express education about AI and also some content specific education about AI. And so from our perspective, we've really got to help make sure that we have connected, excited educators in every classroom. And that's like number one. The next thing that I think is like teacher professional learning and helping to make sure that teachers have time. So we have this document that we put out called the National Educational Technology Plan. This talks about a digital design divide, which is how much time are teachers getting to invest in their own professional learning and think about how they're going to integrate tools into their classroom. And that's going to be their touch point for AI, is thinking about the AI-powered tools that they're using in their classroom. And so how much time are we giving them to actually invest in that learning, to be in learning communities where other people are kind of sojourning with them, to have both expert advice and guidance from instructional leaders? And so those are the two big things. I think we've got to have, obviously, a complete teacher workforce in place, and then we've got to invest in their professional learning.
Thanks. Amen to that. Christiane, do you want to comment on any challenges?
I think Kevin summed it up really well, but I think you're asking a lot of teachers. They already have so much on their plate and do so much for their students. And so making sure that they are prepared. And one of the difficulties, as we said before, is AI is changing. So what you've got to educate the teachers so they can educate the children. But as soon as you've taught them something, it's outdated. And that's a really hard thing to roll out on a large scale education systems for all the teachers to be brought up to speed, for this to be a priority, and then have it be relevant when it's taught.
Well said. Ellen, I know you've thought about this a lot. Is there anything you would add?
Well, I guess one thing would just be to double down on Kevin's comments about teacher shortage. And that's happening not only in the K-12, but that's also happening at the university level. We're seeing so much demand for AI courses in the university. And then, even as you observed for K-12, the AI professors, especially machine learning professors, have these opportunities to go to industry that are exciting, and you make more money and you don't have to go to the federal government and ask for research funds. So we are seeing that those, even at the university level, the teaching capacity is going down because people are getting attracted to other kinds of jobs. So I think it's really a grand challenge for the nation, actually, to try to figure out how we get enough teaching capacity to act on the vision we all have that everyone should have AI education. I think it's something I might want to pull on that Christiane mentioned, and that's about the rapid change. I think this might be a little bit of a temporary phenomenon in the following sense. There are some foundations of artificial intelligence, things that don't change. And I think we need to figure out which of those we should be teaching so that people do feel they have a rock, right, to build upon. And computational thinking, I think it's a very nice phrase for trying to capture that. Things change, but on a foundation that you can hopefully count on. I'm sure it doesn't feel right now to much of anybody like there's an unchanging component of artificial intelligence, but there is, and I think we'll figure out how we provide people with something that feels foundational.
I think that's really interesting as a challenge in itself. There's a sense in which we haven't really wrapped our heads around what it is that AI is and what needs to be taught about it. And so that's a challenge in and of itself, just that it's not been around in this form long enough that we can actually create okay, well, here's the thing that everybody knows. Let's go down the list. So I really am scared about this sort of teaching shortage that you mentioned. And I wonder if we could comment on, and we don't all have to comment on this, but if anybody has a thought about, can AI help us teach AI?
I was just going to allude to one of the programs that I mentioned earlier, the Aspire program. That's actually the thinking behind it, is that AI figures out where you are and then makes a trajectory for you for the kind of many little pieces, many courses and many pieces to get you to where you want to be. It may be a technical role and maybe some other role, right? And then it builds those pieces for you. So AI can, and in fact, is being used to do that. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that because it really allows for a lot of flexibility, but most importantly, for a really personalized educational plan. Whereas in the past, you imagine everyone kind of teaching to sort of maybe the lowest common denominator, right? Maybe dividing it up by levels of having a gifted class and so forth. Now you can really personalize it to individuals. And we've seen this already also in the past in the testing industry, right? Adaptive testing. I think we can have this adaptive learning that'll make it much faster by using AI to do that. So just want to add that there are programs like that already on the road.
Anybody else want to add anything?
I just wanted to say there is certainly tremendous promise for AI to help with education, not just AI education, but other education. I would say I'm not sure I've yet seen an example that strikes me as excellent. So I think there's a lot of work left to do there. And it would be great if we got to that point because that would help with scaling. But I don't feel it's around the corner, I guess I would say.
I think what we are seeing right now is like AI is definitely an opportunity for efficiency gains for instructors. So could it make the profession slightly more sustainable? Probably, if we can roll this out well and we can actually help people have the time to figure out how to use it and get the support that they need. When it comes to these adaptive systems, especially in the earlier grades, they have to be seen as supplemental. And so they're not actually providing core instruction, they're providing supplemental instruction to try and fill in holes in kids' knowledge where they either missed content or it wasn't provided to them. In the higher grades, it's potentially a little bit more interesting. So we are seeing some institutions of education who are rolling out 24/7 tutor access to particular content. And we're even seeing some instances where they have at least initial benchmarks that are showing super low error rates in terms of hallucinations or mistakes. So algebra bots that have close to 0% error rates. That then becomes more interesting, but it also is something where it's like somebody who has good access is going to be able to take better advantage. Like someone who has not as keen of access or is missing more in their foundational knowledge, and so they're not quite phrasing their questions appropriately. And so it's going to be a lot about how are we rolling these out? How are we intentionally designing the systems to serve those equitable ends that we all want?
One other way that AI could be used to help teachers to give them time is to help with other tasks, those side things that we ask teachers to do, your communications with parents, things like that, that take a lot of their time. If AI can be used to make time for them by simplifying those things, that gives them more time in their workday to take on the challenges of learning how to teach AI and how to do these other things with it. If you can take something off their plate to make space for new learning.
I love the realistic view that everybody's got here. It's not a magic wand. It's not going to make everything's better, but it could help if we do it right. So let's be smart about it. So, okay, I think given the amount of time that we've got left, I think we're going to enter a lightning round. And so what I'd like to do now is ask a question and just one of you gets to answer it briefly. So if you want to answer the question, just show me your hand and then I'll choose if there's any contention. Okay. All right. One of the things that people are very concerned about is that computing and AI are being deployed in ways that are not very societally supportive. Where should we put responsible computing into the AI curriculum so that the people creating these systems have a better sense of why they need to do it really well? All right, Ellen.
I think we need to put it in from the very beginning. I think as soon as we talk about how AI works, for example, train on a set of images to learn what's a cat and what's a dog, that's immediately a place where we can talk about what would happen if all the cats that you showed were black cats, and then you didn't know how to recognize a white cat. And you can easily work from there to human situations where things are problematic. So I think from the very beginning.
Thanks. How can we ensure that AI education is accessible to all students regardless of their backgrounds?
So I think teacher professional learning is the biggest. So, and I've already kind of touched on that a little bit. Are we making sure that there are teachers in schools across America who have the content knowledge that they need to deliver it to students? And then I think another piece here is about actual accessibility of materials and things like that. So we do a lot of work with students with disabilities, helping make sure that the materials that you're providing to them are accessible. So if you're using scenarios, can someone who's blind or low vision access that content? And if they can't, obviously knowledge is not going to be deployed equitably. So it's really thinking about, same with like kind of culturally responsive teaching. Do we have materials that are culturally responsive, or are they all written from kind of one perspective? And so really making sure that we have a diversity of materials and teachers who have time for professional learning in order to deploy those.
Thanks so much. How should organizations approach training their employees to work effectively with AI, both in terms of content to be covered and also delivery?
I think it's very similar to a lot of the other things that we've talked about. Just like teaching any student, you've got to meet them where they are and how it applies to them. So some folks need technical training. Some folks need that more ethics policy training. And the formats for adult learning are different sometimes than for young students. So trying to make sure that government agencies and corporations are remembering their adult learners and training them for their position. How does this affect them? How does this affect their day-to-day is a really important part of connecting this AI or any educational aspect to their job and making sure they learn it is how does it affect them? And so making sure you've got that variety and breadth can come from the same core of materials, but it's got to adapt for different people, even if it's just providing different formats, different times of day, short spurts, long spurts. It's got to come in a lot of different forms for people.
All right, thanks. What new job opportunities do you foresee emerging as a result of AI advancements?
I think we're going to see a lot of different types of jobs. A lot of people are thinking about technical jobs, and I think there will be a number of those, whether it be creating sort of the secret sauce of the prompt engineer, or for prompts that really lead to very specific results, or whether it be developing the underlying algorithms, doing research, deploying it, and so forth. But I think we'll also see a lot more jobs actually that use the AI tools, creative professionals that use AI to do design work, authors that use it to help in editing processes, and physicians that use it in terms of using it for diagnostics, prognostics, right? And so there will be a need for professionals across fields. So there will be both new jobs that are AI specific, but I think you'll see more where it's a little bit of AI in all of the existing jobs, much like you might think about computers in the 80s or 70s a while back, where it was really in a few sectors, and then now everyone is using it as part of every job. So I think we'll see it across different careers.
How can public-private partnerships be leveraged to enhance AI learning and employment opportunities?
I think there's a lot of room in terms of looking at these public-private partnerships in terms of leveraging the skills of both. In the private industry, you see a lot of different developments moving forward in terms of application of AI. In the public arena, we're seeing a lot of development in terms of regulatory and trustworthy AI developments. And looking at those two together will be an area that will provide for a lot of synergies and positions that can really take advantage of both integrating these trustworthy AI principles and so forth in actual industry environments by working together.
Outstanding. All right.
Can I jump in, Michael, really fast on public-private partnerships? I think clearly the best one in the government right now, and it's not in my agency, is the NARE, the National AI Research Resource, which really is bringing together so many different pieces together into something that, at least in what I've seen of it, seems pretty cohesive and very much needed. And so I think if agencies are continually thinking about ways that can get more involved in that, so it can serve kind of a whole of government purpose, because it has so many of the right players already in place.
Thank you for the plug for the NARE. That's the National AI Research Resource, which has as one of its thrusts AI education. And so it is a way that companies, industry, and academia and the government are working together to try to get these things to move forward. Thank you so much to all the guests for spending your time and your expertise working on the important problem of educating the nation about artificial intelligence. I'd also like to thank NITRD for supporting all the important conversations that are happening between these dedicated public servants and everyone else who's engaged on these topics. There's no way we'd be able to make positive progress on behalf of the nation without their support. So thanks everybody for being here, and we're out of time.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. Visit our website at nitrd.gov for more information and additional resources.